Today, I bring you a video from a shooting range in Cleveland, and we're going to talk about what you never, ever want to do when you're at the shooting range. My name is Jason Hanson. I'm a former CIA officer, and I love shooting ranges. We have our 320-acre Spire Ranch out in Utah, where we have our shooting range, and of course, I go to shooting ranges all over the country when I'm traveling. So this video here is of a shooting range, as I said, in Cleveland. So as you're watching it here, you can see that, a guy and some ladies, they come out, they're finishing their range session, and they were putting away all their gear, right? So they're putting away, their earmuffs, their glasses, ammo, etc., etc., etc. And then you see the guy, and let me grab one of my guns here. I will grab the Springfield 1911, which is an awesome gun. We will, as usual, double check that it is empty, even though I already checked earlier. So this gentleman, he's sitting there and he's got his gun in his hand, and what does he do? He wants to make sure that he has a safe and empty weapon before he goes home. However, he makes a fatal flaw. As he is checking that safe and empty weapon, or what he thinks is a safe and empty weapon, first, he is pointing it at the woman. Second, he has his finger on the trigger, because what happens? He pulls the trigger and it shoots this poor woman in the stomach. Now, the good thing, as you'll see here, is that the staff of the shooting range reacted very quickly. They administered first aid. She was able to go to the hospital and she was fine. But first, we all know the 4 rules of firearm safety. Treat all guns as if they're always loaded. Never ever point the muzzle of the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're on target and ready to shoot, and know your backstop. Know what's behind what you're aiming at. So this guy obviously violated 2 of the rules of firearm. Well, actually, he violated pretty much everything, but the 2 main rules he violated were putting his finger on the trigger when he was not on target ready to shoot, and even worse, pointing the gun at something he was not willing to destroy. So if you are at the shooting range, and I'm blessed to be able to use my outdoor range most of the time, but like I said, when I travel, I still go to shooting ranges around the country, is you run into a lot of knuckleheads there. And I've seen this firsthand. So when you're at the shooting range, you want to go around and pay attention before you go in there to see if there's anybody safe, and you may say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to the shooting range today. Or you may want to alert the staff, because clearly you want to be safe. When you're sitting there shooting in your lane, you don't want somebody right next door to be pointing the gun at your leg or whatnot. When you're done shooting, when you were on the range, pointed down range at your target, that's when you unload your gun if you want to make it safe and empty. So if you decide for some reason, hey, I don't want to carry my gun home loaded, maybe you live in a not free state where you can't carry your gun loaded home, is you're gonna point that gun down range. You're gonna check both physically and visually, sticking your finger there in the magazine well, as you can see me doing. I'm gonna inspect, I can put my finger in there and check. I'm gonna double check to make sure that gun is safe and empty. Once I know it's safe and empty, then I can put it in the bag right there at the shooting range table I'm at. What you don't wanna do is what this gentleman did, is walk out, leave the range area, be on that table where you can put away your other stuff, such as eyes, ears, gun oil, and then be checking, hey, is my gun safe and empty now? Is it, is everything good? And pop off into that poor woman's stomach. I had a friend of a friend of a friend many years ago, and he had a gun on a nightstand right near his bed. And he said one day he was, I can't even remember what he was doing, this guy was doing, but he was checking his gun, and he was sitting there to see if it was safe and empty, put his finger on the trigger, popped the round off in his bed. And he said if my wife had been sleeping there, she would have had a hole in her. So very, very fortunate. His wife was not there, nobody was there, everybody was safe. This guy got lucky. So you've got to be very careful. I mean, all the rules are critically important, all the 4 firearm safety rules, especially that one of not pointing the gun at anything you're not willing to destroy. Because even if you do something stupid and put your finger on the trigger and put a hole in your yard or put a hole in your house in the floor, that's okay because nobody got hurt. So you've always got to watch that muzzle. I can't emphasize it enough. When I do our pistol classes, when I do our rifle classes, we not only cover the 4 rules of firearm safety, we also talk about the evacuation plan. I'm going to go over that right now because it's a useful thing for you to know anytime you go to an indoor range or outdoor range. And that evacuation plan is we will bring one of our trucks down, put it in the shooting range. The truck will point to the exit of the range. If something happens, and thankfully it's never ever happened in all the years I've been teaching people at our 320-acre Spire Ranch, but if something happens, I am going to be the driver. We we have a designated driver. Hey, you're the passenger, another range officer, and hey, you're the person in the back helping the person who's been shot administer first aid. Whether that's putting on a tourniquet, whether that's putting on quick clot, an Israeli bandage, all things that you should have. So a CAT tourniquet, CAT tourniquet, great tourniquet to have because you can put it on one-handed. Also, quick clot is a great clotting agent, an Israeli bandage, all things that you should have in your range bag because you may be your own first responder. So that's our evac plan. If something happens, we leave the keys in the car. That way, all we get to do is start the car, get the person in the vehicle, start heading towards the hospital. The range officer on the passenger side is going to call 911, explain the situation. That way, the ambulance can meet us in the middle, and then we can hand off that person. Thankfully, I've never had to do it, but we have that thorough evacuation plan in case the worst of the worst happens. So have an evac plan. If you go to your shooting range, local shooting range, do you have your CAT tourniquet? Do you have your Israeli bandage? Do you have quick clot? And even though the staff, in this case, did an awesome job, they were there, they administer first aid, if for some reason you're in a place where the staff is not as prepared, where is your closest hospital? Who's going to call 911 for you? If you go with a partner, which a lot of people do, husband and wife, etc., say, hey, if something happens to me, make sure you call 911, and then, I'm going to put on a tourniquet or whatever. So just have some type of simple plan because you don't want to end up like this poor woman who had a bullet in her stomach. Also, another very important and simple thing to do while you're at the range is, of course, let somebody know you're there. Let your wife, let your kids know. Just let somebody know you're going to the range in case something happens. Of course, 99% of the time, people are safe in all the awesome ranges all over this great country of ours, but every once in a while, there's a knucklehead there. So don't be the guy who shoots somebody in the shooting range. Respect your gun at all times. Know the 4 rules of firearms safety, and always load and unload your gun pointing down at the range where that target is. I'm former CI officer Jason Hanson. Hope you learned a thing or two from this video. If you want to learn more tips, tricks, and hacks that could save your life, make sure you click on the link below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that ring notification. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and get yourself a 1911, one of the greatest guns ever made.